this is the last, I think the last section that the book has as far as 3.4. They call it 3.4 again. I don't remember what page it's on, but it says 3.4 factoring. Oh, thank you for remembering to do that, honey. I appreciate that. Put up 20 points. Nicely done. Okay, so what page is it? 140. Okay. So in this I just wanted to remind you guys, because you're going to be doing this. It says, remember to find the greatest common factor. You write the factors of each number. And we're going to do some of these.
I forgot how to do the greatest common factor. I failed.
Well, like I said, we're going to do some of these. But right here, I'm explaining to you how to do it. So you write the factors of each number, and then you're going to circle or match the common factors, and then you'll find the product of those. In other words, you're just going to multiply them together. And so I gave you an example right here. For example, if I said find the greatest common factor of 12 and 56, notice the first thing I did is I wrote the factors of 12. And then I wrote out the factors of 56.
What are factors again?
Well, the factors are the numbers that would go in evenly into a particular number.
There's still more factors, like of 12. 6, like 6, 4, 28. You have to let him.
Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. 12, 2 and 6, and then 2 and 3. The factors of 12. Or I could look at it this way. Or maybe the multiples of 12. Not quite sure if I'm phrasing it correctly. I think they may have used some different verbiage, and I'm not remembering what it was right now. This is what I'm talking about. So you could write it as 2 squared times 3, but I just want you to list them. That's the better way to do this lesson right now. So going back to the example, 12 is 2 times 2 times 3, and then 56 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. And you'll notice that they each have 2 2's, and 2 times 2 is 4. So the greatest common factor of 12 and 56 is 4. In other words, the largest number that is going to go into 12 and 56 evenly is 4. This should be jogging your memory. All right, another example. How about 20 and 45? Well, going back to what Miss Ryan had mentioned, I broke down 20. It's 2 and 10, 2 and 5. So it's 2, 2, and 5. And then I did 45. I put 3 and 15, and then 3 and 5. And so again, I listed them here, 3, 3, and 5. And they both have a single factor, which is 5. And so the greatest common factor of 20 and 45 is 5.
I remember how to do it.
You remember how to do it now? Okay, good. So you can look at these examples if you want, but I'm not going to bother with them. What I am going to do is do several of these with you, and you can see which ones I want you to do. I have them all right here. It's most of the practice, and then number 18. I skipped 13 and 15, but I do want you to do the rest, the even and the odd ones. But let me do these with you. So I'm looking at number 1 right now. And it's 7 plus 14. And so what we're doing here is we're factoring the expression. And they talk about it right here, and they give you a good example. So let's go back to this very first one that I want you guys to do. And since I'm giving you the answer, you probably want to pay attention. So it's 7 plus 14. So what are the factors of 7? 1 and 7. What are the factors of 14? 2 and 7. So I could look at it this way. Let me put down 7 and I'll put down 14. And so 7, it's 1 and 7. And 14 is 2 and 7. What's the common factor, the greatest common factor between them? It's 7. Okay? So here's what you would do. You're going to put 7 outside the parentheses, because we're going backwards from what I had taught you last week. We're now converting an expression, and that's what that is, that's an expression, into using the distributive property. So it's going to be 7 times, because remember, if it's a number right next to the parentheses, it just means times. 7 times, it'd be 1 plus 2. So, look what we've got here. What's 7 times 1?
7.
Plus, what's 7 times 2?
14.
And you see how they now match?
Why would we need 12? Yeah.
Again, and I've said this before, you're exercising a way to use your brain.
Is this homework?
Okay? It's, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll leave that one up there. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 is 44 minus 11. Now, what I want to do is set this up using the distributive property. And the first thing I need to do is list the factors of each. So I'll just break down 44 for starters. I could use 2 and 22, and then 2 and what? 11. Okay, now I need to factor out 11. Well, what's that? 11's prime, so it's going to be what?
1 and 11.
1 and 11. All right. So I'll put 44 right here, and I'll put 11 right here. For 44, I'll put 2 times 2 times 11. 2 times 2 times 11. And for 11, it's just simply 1 times 11. So what's the greatest common factor between 44 and 11? It's 11. So, having pointed that out, when I set up for the distributive property, what's the number that goes on the outside of the parentheses? Okay? So the greatest common factor is the number that always goes on the outside of the parentheses. Now I just need to think about what times 11 would be 44.
2, 1.
11 times what is 44? 4, right. 4. And then notice, go back to the original problem, it was minus. So I'm going to put a little minus sign. And so the next one is 11, minus 11. What number would equal 11? 1. So that's the answer to number 2, 11, and then in parentheses 4 minus 1. Seems pretty easy at first, but you have to really kind of think about how you're going to do these. So let's do another one. Let's do number 3. Let me move this down here. Oh, I got to add a page. I'm running out of room. Actually, you know what? Just so we can keep looking at this page, let me just erase it. And while I'm doing this, why don't you guys try number 3 on your own? Okay. Number 3 is 18, and it's 18 minus 12. So you're going to factor out 18, and then you'll factor out 12, just for starters. That's what you're going to do. And then I'll put 18 here, And I'll put 12 here, and then I'm going to list the factors. Okay. Pull a stick here. Oh, that's not where that goes. And Mr. Williams isn't back yet. Mr. Patania, factor out 18 for me.
6 and 3.
Okay, I'll put 3 and 6, and then 3 is prime, so we're done there. What about 6?
3 and 2.
Yeah, 2 and 3. So 18, I could put 2 times 3 times 3. So we're done with that. Now, Mr. Patania, factor out 12 for me.
6 and 2.
Okay, so I'm going to put 2 and 6, and then 2 is prime. What about 6?
3 and 2.
Yeah, 2 and 3. So 6 would be 2 times 2 times 3. Nicely done. Put up 20 points. Miss Scott, so looking at what I wrote here, what factors match?
They all match.
So they both have a 2,
Yes.
and they both have what?
3.
A 3, okay. So now what you do is you multiply the two factors that match. So they both have a 2, they both have a 3. What's 2 times 3 equal?
Oh,
Shh.
6.
What's that?
6.
6. So the greatest common factor of 18 and 12 is 6. Now, we're still not done. All we did is figured out what's going to go on the outside of the parentheses. Now you need to look at 18, for example. What times 6 equals 18?
3.
3. And it's a minus sign. Okay, so it's 6 times 3 is 18 minus what times?
2.
That's right. 6 minus 2 would be 12, so 2.
I get it.
You guys kind of see how these work?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do one more together to really kind of sink this in, because these are not easy.
We do 16. Wait, so the answer for 3 is it plus 6 or 6?
So the answer to number 3 is 6, and then in parentheses 3 minus 2.
Can we do 16?
And the answer to number 2, I erased that one. What was the answer to that one?
It was 11 and then 4 in parentheses minus 1. In parentheses.
And then number 1 I still have there. It was 7, 1 plus 2. So the greatest common factor, that's the number that goes on the outside of the parentheses. Okay? So remember that. The greatest common factor is the number that goes on the outside of the parentheses. And then you just need to figure out what you multiply by that to equal the expression that you were given. Remember, these are all expressions. Those are called expressions. And anytime you have some numbers that don't have an equal sign, that's just an expression. That's what they're called, expressions. So, for example, if I wrote 5 plus 3 plus 2 equals, that's an equation because it has an equal sign. If I wrote 5 plus 3 plus 2 and ask you what that was, you would say that's an expression. Okay? All right. Let's do one more. Yes? Yeah, just how funny you would pick the hardest one. No, I'll let you figure that one out on your own. All right. Let's see here. You're all marked right there. You can see what they are. Okay,
What about number 4?
let's look at number 14.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll do that one all the way with you guys, but I'll help you get it set up here. So let's factor out 14 and let's factor out 98. So 14 is what? 2 and 7. Okay? 98. So I'll put 14 here. Equals 2 times 7.
I just want you to do a letter.
Equals. Well, if you look, you'll see that that has 1 in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not worrying about the x right now. Right now, I just want to factor things out. So 98, well, I know 98 can be divided by 2 because it ends with a number 02468 that can be divided by 2. So Mr. Alcama, what would be 2 and 9, or 98 would be what? 2 times 9 is 18.
No, dividing, going down.
You lost me.
So 98 divided by 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had the answer. You were telling me something else then, right?
Yeah, right there.
So do you know what it is? What half of 98 is?
49.
49 is correct. Nicely done. So 2 and 49. How about 49?
Sounds scary. Oh, I know it.
What is it?
7 and 7. Yeah.
7 and 7. So
7s are prime.
2 times 7 times 7. What are the common factors they have?
They both have 7
And they both have 2. So what's 2 times 7?
14.
14, okay. So going back to this one right here, number 14, this is the one we're working on. It's going to be 14 on the outside of the parentheses, and then we're going to have 2 numbers on the inside, and it is a minus, because it's 14x minus 98. So look at this spot right here. What times 14 would equal 14x?
1x.
1x, right. Or what? I could just put x. Because remember, there's always an assumed what in front of every variable. There's always an assumed 1. So x is just in the first spot right there. Minus, well, what times 14 equals 98?
7.
There you go. So I did number 14 for you. It's going to be 14, and then in parentheses, x minus 7. So you figure out the greatest common factor, and then that goes on the outside of the parentheses, and then you just figure out what you have to multiply that by to get the expression that they gave you. Okay? It's complicated, but you do have to kind of think about it and use your noggins for these.
It's kind of like combining both of the things that we've always learned.
Exactly, and Mr. Patani, that's often the case, that as we progress, you're using the things that you've been previously taught. And I knew the greatest common factor, some of you didn't really have that down really well yet. So, should I do one more as far as
Yes.
finding the greatest common factor, just for practice?
You should do one more about a plus one, because we did all minus.
Okay. Well,
Number 1 was plus.
so let's just do, let's just factor out a couple numbers. How about 26
And 17.
and 60? Let's figure out the greatest common factor of 26 and 60. So what would that be?
13 and 2.
Yeah, 2 and 13. And 2 is prime, and 13 is prime. So we can't go any further. So we're done with that one. So I could list 26 here equals 2 times 13. Whoops. All right, then I'll list 60 here equals,
6 and 10.
and I could do a plus here. So I heard somebody say it, 6 and 10. Can we factor out 6?
Yeah, 3 and 2.
Yep, 2 and 3. We're done there. How about 10?
5 and 10. And 5.
2 and 5. I always list the smallest one first. So 2 is prime and 5 is prime, so we're done. So 60 would be 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. Notice I'm just using each one. There's 2 2s, and there's a 3, and there's a 5. Okay? Now I'm going to look and compare. Whoops. What's common between them?
They both have a 2.
They both have a 2. Anything else? That's it, huh? So the greatest common factor for 26 and 60 is 2. So here's what I would do. I'm going to put 2 on the outside of the parentheses, and then I'll ask myself, first off, what times 2 equals 26?
13.
7.
Okay. Plus, what times 2 equals 60?
30. 30.
Okay. One of my Chromebook is slowing. It's not writing when I write, so I'm going to end the video here. Boy, I sure hope this isn't corrupt.